darkest of evils. Explore the secrets of a hidden world. And discover the adventure no one will believe. The Spiderwick Chronicles video game in stores now.
If you grew up with a PlayStation 2, you may be familiar with a studio named Stormfront, who were the developers of the second Lord of the Rings game. That was probably their crowning achievement, but they do have a slightly richer story than that. Originally known as Beyond Software and ran by Don Baglow, they developed many RPGs like Neverwinter Nights, which they won many awards for and have continued to win awards for, as well as some early MMOs. They were also a close developer for EA in the early days, working on a bunch of EA Sports titles, blah blah blah. I don't think I need to recap all of the NASCAR games they released. During the late 90s, they also changed their name because it turns out having Beyond in your title is a really difficult word to maintain copyright for. Just being called Beyond, it's tricky. Tricky! Sorry. All in all, the 90s had been a really good time for Beyond, now Stormfront, because of their dealings with EA. And also, development was a bit different back then. You could do stuff for cheaper and all that. The early 2000s was a big changing moment in gaming because of that. We were moving away from that model. Stormfront was also working quite close with a publishing company that you might be more familiar with, Sierra Entertainment. This name probably stirs a lot more memories for you than Stormfront. You would have seen their logo on Half-Life, Time Shift, The Hobbit, Crash, Mind Over Mutant, and Crash of the Titans, as well as dozens more titles. These are just the ones that I picked out because they were the ones that I knew. They were a real powerhouse at the time, but we all know that gaming kind of went through an evolution at this time, and Sierra was kind of a casualty of this time as well. So we're talking about the Spiderwick game, which turns out is Nickelodeon as well, so my niche remains accurate. Welcome to another episode of Bikini Bottom Inquirer, where we are investigating the Spiderwick game that destroyed Stormfront Studios. Enter over-the-top title here. Feels that way. Curse you, YouTube algorithm.
Can't you read?
Sierra was a subsidiary of Vivendi Games, and from early 2004 began to go through some serious cost cutting. They had gone several years of releasing relatively unsuccessful titles, and so were put through the ringer. Vivendi laid off 350 people, shut down locations, and more or less transformed Sierra into little more than a title that was merged into a division of Vivendi, which they later used for all of their publishing work, rather than using the Vivendi name. Many of their more popular titles were released in this state, so often when you've seen the Sierra logo, it actually was just Vivendi with a skeleton crew representing Sierra. This was all going on in the background and kind of shows what Sierra and Stormfront's relationship was at this time, going into that kind of middle point of the 2000s. And going into 2007-2008, we do find that they are both really on their last legs. Stormfront, hot off the heels of their award-winning and super successful adaptation of The Two Towers, soon released the Eragon video game, a pretty standard hack and slash that has a mixed reception, some people being unnecessarily harsh, others being a bit too nostalgia blind. The issue really wasn't the game itself, but the overall failure of the Eragon brand. The movie made a tiny bit of money, but generated such little interest that expecting people to go off and buy a video game for a meh movie they hardly even remembered seeing, that's a recipe for disaster. We don't have any hard numbers, but it's very clear to see that Eragon did not do for Stormfront what Two Towers did, and left them in quite a sticky situation. At the same time, Vivendi is going through a merger with Activision, a merger where it has been made very clear that Activision has no interest in the Sierra brand. So the clock is really ticking for both companies as we go into 2007. With their now budding reputation for making meh tie-in games, Stormfront secures the rights to make a video game adaptation of the upcoming Spiderwick Chronicles movie. Really doubling down on their new direction. That's definitely not a bad idea at all. Hey, you see what's nearly bankrupted us is doing these movie tie-in games? Yeah, we did one good one, but it's nearly killed us. Let's put all of our eggs in this one basket. That's what you do with eggs, right? Who has multiple baskets for eggs? It's cringe. A quick bit of background, I read all the Spiderwick books as a kid. I was a mega fan. I also have a very core memory of sitting at home one night playing this game on the family computer, eagerly waiting for it to hit 7 because our whole family was going out to go see the movie together that night. So I am a big, big fan. And I've come back to kind of look at all of this with some fresh eyes. And, you know, it's the thing you always do. It's like you want to come back to something and see how it holds up. And that was part of the way for this game. It has been a very, very long time since I've played it. Anyway, Stormfront leaps into development with a great deal of enthusiasm, working closely with the film production, visiting the sets to help recreate it in the game.
We actually were able to go and visit the film set so we could gather information for building our own levels.
We actually saw in person where the film was being shot.
They had built the entire Spiderwick mansion. We were driving up to it, looking at it, and just like, it blew our minds because it was the mansion out of the books.
I was surprised how, you know, how true to the real house it was, and it was exactly mirrored in the game, which is kind of cool.
As well as locking down all of the main actors to voice their parts in the game. A bit of a rarity at the time for movie tie-in games, but a really nice addition.
We are very fortunate in the fact that we got Freddie Highmore, who plays the character of both Jared and Simon.
Well, I first got involved with Spiderwick by reading the books through. It's basically about these 3 kids and their mum who go to live in this house in the country.
My character is Mallory Grace. It's crazy looking at yourself in the video game going, this person's based on me, this is mental. Mallory's greatest strength is kind of keeping them together. And, I mean, you'll see in the video game, she completely looks after the 2 boys. Get away from him!
Their big focus was capturing the mood, feel, and design of the movie, really aiming to make it a partner piece to the film, with Sarah Bolger, who played Mallory Grace, saying that
when you play the game, you get completely involved, and you're surrounded yourself by being in these characters' positions. It just brings to life what they really went through. Their world is closer than you think.
the team generally just had a really big focus on expanding the world of the movie and making it really engaging. It is important to remember that these behind the scenes clips are, in their nature, advertisements, so obviously they're going to be really over the top and really enthusiastic, but you can absolutely tell that there is a level of just investment. There's a level of engagement. They're really involved in this. They're really intending to make something really good here. Obviously, they're not going to sound disinterested in an advertisement, but you can tell a level of authenticity here. And also from the kids as well, the actors.
I think it's great fun to be able to go in, you know, and become Jared and Simon and Mallory, and that's what people like when they see the film. They wish, you know, I wish I was there, and they can be there through the game.
Development on both the movie and game continue into late 2007, with an April and March release organised respectively. All the while, the Vivendi and Activision merger is ever looming, and Stormfront needs them to publish the game. So it's a real race against time. But it all comes together at the end. Spiderwick Chronicles is published by Sierra and released in February for North America and March for Europe. And not long after, the movie itself releases too. Now, let's pivot for a second and talk about the game itself. The Spiderwick game follows the plot of the movie fairly closely, with some additions for gameplay's sake. It's an adventure-style game with reasonably big explorable areas, heaps of collectible items that you'll craft into different tools to help you on your quest, some simple combat sections mixed with platforming, all of which combines into a fairly typical game for this era. Something that's interesting to me is, apart from the portable version, all the versions of the game, including PC, are all the same. Clearly the PC version was made first, and each subsequent version is just a visually downscaled version from PC, which is interesting to see. But what's coolest about this is, wait for it, this game runs perfectly on modern computers, which is very rare. I spend most of my time with these early 2000s games just trying to get them to work. But most importantly, this bad boy scales. I played this game at 4K and recorded it in 1440p, and it looks awesome. It's gotten to the point where these visuals don't look outdated, they look stylized almost. Combined with the absolutely phenomenal vibe of the game, everything comes together to form one of the absolute best ambient games I've ever experienced. It so perfectly captures the feel of the books and the tone of the movie that it transcends many of its issues for the sheer vibe of it all. This all culminating with the fantastic voiceover work, the pretty good performances from the actors as well as just the insane music score. All this together makes the Spiderwick game an absolute joy to experience, and the flawless performance with the upscaled resolution means there is no barrier to entry for newcomers. You can hop in and enjoy the game at the level of quality you would need an emulator running super hard to achieve with the console versions. Now, gameplay-wise, it's basic on all fronts, but it has enough cool additions that make it worthwhile. Combat is just mashing attack with a dodge button, pretty bland. If they stopped there, I'd have an issue. But they have 3 playable characters, all that feel a bit different to play, each with different hitboxes, range, speed, and damage. So that varies it up a bit. But you can also upgrade your weapons at different points in the story, which increases damage for those specific characters, which also adds some diversity, based on which character has an upgrade at which time. You also have the sprites, which change things again. They're little fairies that you catch around the map, and then you draw on your field guide to capture. They give you a handful of different effects, depending on each, which also helps change up combat. In this section, I had to protect Jared as he searched for a key. I had tried it before and lost very quickly, so I decided to plan ahead. I went and found a fairy that doubled my damage, and then I went to the area where he would be searching and cleared it out of all the goblins beforehand. I then immediately started the quest, so by the time new goblins arrived, I could easily fend them off with my double damage. It's simple enough, but the fact that this kids game from the early 2000s that was a movie tie-in game allows me to approach stuff differently and handle it differently and approach it in different ways and come out with different fairies and come out with all this type of stuff and lets me pick whether I want to just grind my nose against it and just see if I can like force my way through manually or come back again with different fairies or like try and clear the area before. The fact that it lets me do that is really cool and quite special considering what it is. Take this troll for instance. You can feed him goblins to get past, which is slow but no real problem, or you can try and fight him back to give yourself enough time to sneak past. Once again, for a kids tie-in game of this era, having these types of freedoms is really cool. Another example, I had a level as Mallory and I knew I was going off to the goblin camp to kill a bunch of them and find some pages they stole. If I was playing as Jared, this wouldn't be a big deal because I had an upgraded baseball bat, so it would have been fine, but Mallory just has her base sword. So I knew this was going to be really hard. I could go beforehand and grab a bunch of the double damage fairies and just try to like grind my way through, but I noticed there was a saber on the wall that was locked.
Now that's a sword. If only it was unlocked.
I went over and talked to Thimbletack and he offered to get it down for me. I then had to retrace through the Thimbletack areas to find any area that I'd missed, which I found, which was a secret passage hidden away. This led me right to the sword, where I unlocked it and gave it to my main character. Something I could have entirely skipped or even just missed, I got to do, and then that completely changed the end game. It completely changes Mallory, like the damage that she does, so the different way you approach different scenes. I went into that fight at the camp with just a bunch of health sprites. I didn't need to do the double damage stuff, and I was fine throughout it. That is so cool that you can approach this stuff differently, and they don't always hold your hand with it. You could have gone on and gone into the final bosses and all that without having Mallory having an upgraded weapon. That's really cool. And I got to discover that for myself, which is just fantastic. I think we also need to pay real respect to the music. I know I've brought it up before, but damn! If nobody got me, I know the Spiderwick OST got me. Also, I love how violent the game is. The slashing and bashing, just like, it's so visceral. I'm literally crushing these goblins. I'm slicing up Redcap. I'm burning them alive. It's so fun. And it just shows the extra level of effort that went into this game. Even like the inclusion of random extra enemies, like this mimic that appears once in one area. And when I went back there later, He doesn't spawn again. It's just this one-time occurrence that like freaks you out. It's so cool. I literally saw a Reddit thread of people discussing as like whether this actually happened or whether it was just a creepypasta. All in all, it's very much a game of its age, but I literally could not stop myself from playing through it all in one go. It's like 3 hours long, super immersive, super atmospheric and ambient, heaps of fun, an absolute love letter to the fans. This is a fantastic game. If you played it as a kid, come back and give it another go. It's so rare to say this, but you'll be pleasantly surprised to find that it is better than you remember it being. And if you've never tried it, give it a go. With the upscalable resolution and all that, there is no barrier to entry. Stormfront's ambition and passion was on full display, and they knocked it out of the park. But sadly, it wasn't really enough. The movie did well, but not great, and suffered from a similar position to Eragon. It made its money back, and people generally enjoyed it, more so than Eragon. But this wasn't a new franchise. This wasn't Lord of the Rings, or Narnia, or Harry Potter. This was a one-and-done film, and that affected the game a great deal. It is widely considered to be a financial failure, the second big failure in a row. A single failure is enough to sink just about any studio, let alone two. And there was some extra insult needing to be added to this injury. After the Vivendi merger, Sierra was officially closed down in 2008, making Spiderwick its last published game literally months before it closed. It was truly its last gasp. There is much more to that story, including the brand being revived under Activision for a very short time in the 2010s before quickly disappearing again. It has yet to ever resurface after its domain was purchased from Activision in 2018. A rather unfitting end to Sierra, but sadly a rather common one when you're involved with Activision. Stormfront, after suffering two big failures and suddenly losing their main publisher, also collapsed. Stormfront closed its doors on March 31st of 2008, just over a month after Spiderwick released in North America, and less than a month after it released in Europe. I think this indicates Eragon really put the death nail in Stormfront. The subsequent failure of Spiderwick was really its final gasp. Unless Spiderwick was a meteoric success, there is no way Stormfront could have survived. The Spiderwick game is an absolutely fantastic piece of gaming history. A wonderfully fun little adventure that sadly had no ability, no matter its own merit, to save either its developer or its publisher, both of which had their destinations pretty hard set beforehand. But despite this, despite the eventual collapse being all but assured, Stormfront didn't take the easy way out. They didn't cobble together some abomination so to avoid paying their employees. No, they put in the effort and released a game to no fanfare, no support. But they released a game that can be a true representation of their company. A real gem. This farewell creation was and is one of the best movie tie-in games of all time.
It's a place of the imagination.
And there you have it. I hope you've enjoyed this week's investigation. If you're new to the channel, this is Bikini Bottom Inquirer, where we do different investigations and documentaries on Nickelodeon-y subjects. We also have a weekly podcast, which is with me and my co-host, Who Needs Normal, who also puts up documentaries here. If you enjoyed this, remember to subscribe, and you can also check out, we've done an investigation on the demo of a specific SpongeBob game, which is really interesting to dive into. We've done ones on the kind of turning point of SpongeBob when it shifted as a show. And we've also done an investigation into the highest viewed special that ever aired on Nickelodeon, which was Rugrats All Growed Up. And if you've been here for a while and enjoy our stuff, we have just recently opened up memberships on the channel. For $2 a month, you can get access to a Discord, these investigations early, and a whole bunch of other little benefits that help us kind of create the show and pay for all of the subscriptions that are required to run a YouTube channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Later, loser.